Welcome to Indiana Sports Beat Radio, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Looks over the middle, second guesses, fires, throws. Does he make the catch in the end zone? Yes! Touchdown! Oladipo to win it.
Another one!
He got
Another
it!
one!
Oladipo!
Another one!
Huge hole. He's at the 30. He's going to go. 10, 5, touchdown. Jonathan Taylor.
Galloway finds Rob Finnessy, who fires the three, and
He hit it.
Now, from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, here's your host, Jim Coyle.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Indiana Sports Beat Radio, coming to you, of course, on this February 28th from high atop the 18th fairway at the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios. Don't forget, Indiana Sports Beat Radio is powered by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington, where you get more to your door at andymoorehonda.com with the best selection in new and used vehicles. Make sure you stop by and visit Andy Moore Honda today. And all of the great restaurants in and around the Bloomington area, like Hoosier Hank. You got Hoosier Hank's Pizza Mac that I had last night, which I thought it was just mac and cheese. It's not. It was like a party in the bowl before you ate it. It was incredible. But you can go to HoosierHank.com, as a matter of fact. Get the little sticker right there. See that?
There you go. How
You
about
see
that?
Hoosier Hank? Look at Hoosier
I see
Hank.
Hoosier Hank. Look at that.
He was out and about all last night. He was getting pictures. Kind of cool. And Indiana doesn't have an official mascot. This is going to be the unofficial mascot, I think.
Oh, they've got a mascot, all right, Jim.
No,
He's just
they do
longer in
not.
service. Yes,
And
they
you can
do.
use that, and you can use that phone number 812-330, all zeros. There you go. But we're going to get people asking about being able to buy these cool hats and stuff. Well, they're going to get a one spot together where you can do all of that. Welcome aboard. Hope your day has started off right. It's game day for Indiana as the Iowa Hawkeyes pay a visit. The 18-11 Iowa Hawkeyes, 10-8 in the Big Ten, one game difference from Indiana, one game behind Indiana in the Big Ten standings, no less. And speaking of the Big Ten standings, of course, Indiana wonkily sitting. To me, they're sitting in second. Through all the tiebreaker crap, they were actually in fifth if the tournament was today, but that changes with each game starting tonight. Indiana takes a step in securing that number 2 seed line, Dustin, which that is of utmost importance going into the Big Ten tournament. And with 4 teams tied at 11-7, and Indiana not having the tiebreaker over neither Northwestern nor Maryland, they just need them to lose a single game and Indiana to win out. And boom, that takes care of that. Indiana winds up with the number 2 seed. Opposite the Purdue Boilermakers, setting up a potential Hoosier Boilermaker Big Ten championship. But that's putting the cart before the horse.
I was going to say, I don't think Purdue's going to get to the championship game, to be quite honest with you.
Wow.
I don't see it happening. Now, I think that depending on who they match up with in that quarterfinal round on Friday, I think that they'll get to Saturday. I think they'll probably win that first game. But you look at who they might have to play. Northwestern defended them really well. They had trouble with Maryland at home and on the road. Michigan, they matched up pretty well. Iowa incorporates the press. I mean, there's a lot of teams that have kind of, I don't want to say figured out Purdue, but they know how to defend them. It's just a matter of if Purdue can hit shots or not. And if they're not hitting shots, as we saw on Saturday, I don't want to say they're an easy team to beat, but they are become very one-dimensional. So I think, look, it's still a crazy race. We've got 2 games. Everybody's got 2 games left, and you've got 8 teams within a game and a half of each other. I mean, I can't remember this type of race recently where there was just so much to be determined and so many teams fighting for one of those top 4 spots.
It's nuts.
It's crazy. And so, yeah, Indiana can take a huge step in the right direction. They can get the tiebreaker with Iowa. They currently have it with Michigan. They're not going to have it with Northwestern. So this is a huge game for Indiana tonight to, as we talked with Don Fisher yesterday, not only to take another step in securing a first-round bye or a double bye in the Big Ten tournament, but also to carry some of that momentum that you've gained over the past 10, 12 games, and after beating Purdue on the road, coming back home, a chance to beat an Iowa team that you should have beat earlier in the season at Carver Hawkeye Arena. This is a big one. This is I think that what you said yesterday, that this is going to stick in their minds, how they lost a, 19, 21 point lead a month ago. I think that's going to be fresh in their minds for this one.
Before I forget, a couple shout outs. Chuck, I hope you're enjoying your nice morning coffee this morning. Shout out to you, my friend. Appreciate you listening. And our first financial friend of the day, Logan Knapp. How are you, brother? I appreciate you very much. Hope you're having a good start to your game day. Appreciate you listening very much. Looking at the Big Ten standings, you mentioned this. I can go all the way down to, I guess that would be 12th. 8 and 10, going up from 12th place. 8 and 10, 8 and 10, 8 and 10, 9 and 8, 10 and 8, 10 and 8, 10 and 8, 11 and 7, 11 and 7, 11 and 7, 11 and 7. I mean, pretty crazy. But also crazy, look at the Big 12 standings. Look at something nuts. There are at least 2 teams that have losing records that are definitely going to make the tournament. Iowa State will make the NCAA tournament. TCU's got a 500 record. West Virginia is 6-11 and is still, now I think they lost. No, they won last night, didn't they? I was watching that game. I think I might have fallen asleep because I think they were 5-11 going into that game. So, yeah, they beat Iowa State last night. That's a big win for them. Holy cow. I think that was on the road. 72-69. That was a great game. But that's why a team like West Virginia with a 6-11 conference mark, unheard of, will be playing in the NCAA tournament.
Yeah.
I mean, it's crazy. You've never heard of I don't recall conference teams with that kind of a record making it into the tournament.
I don't either. I'm sure it's probably happened before, maybe in the old Big East days, but I know probably Mike DeCourcy would disagree with this, and I know we're going to have him on the program later today, but I've always had a problem with teams that don't finish 500 or better getting into the NCAA tournament in their conference.
But you can't do that. So, all right.
You can.
Okay. Then that would not be fair because compare the ACC to the Big 12.
Okay.
The Big 12 has 5 teams in the top 12 on the top 12 seed lines right now. The ACC doesn't have 2 in the top 40 probably. But there's a difference in quality of play, man. When you're having to go to a fist fight game every night, like you in the Big 12, it's like, dude, bring guns and knives and bats and knuckles and everything. It's every night is a war in the Big 12. The ACC is Candyland right now. It's just not that. They're 7th in the net rankings. You can't compare a conference like that. It used to be that way though, because the conferences all used to be strong. The ACC was strong at the same time, and so those kind of conference records stood out back then because those teams were not as good. But these teams are better than what their conference records are showing.
So I don't like to really reward mediocrity. And to me, if you are below 500 in your conference and you get a chance to compete for a national championship, that's rewarding mediocrity. Like, and you can make this argument let's just pretend. I know this isn't the case. Let's just pretend everybody plays.
Mike DeCourcy is going to tear you up.
I know. It's fine. I understand. This is why I said Mike is not going to like this take. It's totally fine. People don't agree with me on this. I'm just saying
he's going to agree with me for once, baby.
he damn well might. Yes, absolutely. Yes! He's going to take your side on this. Let's just for the sake of argument say every conference plays 20 league games because it's kind of easy to do the math. I'm not saying 12-8 is all that much better or 11-9 is all that much different than 9-11 if you're playing a strong league, right? If you played in the Big Ten the previous 2 or 3 seasons, that's, it's hard to get wins. In the Big 12 this year, it's hard to get wins. I understand all that. But when you talk about competing for a national championship, there are how many teams did you just rattle off in the Big Ten that are above 500 right now?
In the Big Ten?
Yeah, in the Big Ten. We've got in conference play 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There's 9 teams. So those 9 teams, in my opinion,
they
qualify.
They also have 14 teams in this league versus 10 in the Big 12.
Right. And they've got 12 teams overall that are above 500.
Okay,
out of the 14.
That just does not make it the same. It's not, everything is just not the same.
I didn't say it was the same. I'm just saying, but
like a perfect example is look at Purdue and Indiana. Purdue got to play the absolute bottom. Is this not a fact? They played the bottom 5 teams of the conference, 4 of them twice, 1 of them once. So there are 9 wins. 9 of their 13 wins to win a conference championship come from playing against the bottom, the worst of the worst.
Okay.
And then others do not
point?
have that schedule.
Okay.
Well, take Indiana for that, who only got to play those same teams one time and had to double play the teams at the top of the conference twice. You're telling me that doesn't make a difference?
Do we want to go through the schedule and see how this has worked out on a season-to-season basis?
I just asked one question. You're telling me that does not make a difference?
It does make a difference, but the schedule. You play the schedule going into the season. You know what you have to do. This is the same thing. Look, you ask. So I don't see how it's any different. If you put a criteria out there and say you have to finish 500 or better in your league to get into the NCAA tournament, How is it any different than setting the requirement of you have to win your league tournament to get
Nobody
into
put a requirement, but there is no requirement you have to finish 500.
I'm saying if they implemented some sort of requirement like that.
Which would be idiotic.
Why is it more idiotic than you have to win your conference tournament?
Because you cannot compare the conferences to each other. As far as wins and losses, you can't compare the Big 12 to the ACC.
But you
can, and it's a horrible comparison. The ACC sucks.
But you're saying if I win the ACC tournament, it's the same as winning the Big 10 tournament.
No, because it's not.
They're automatic qualifiers, so it's the same.
No, they're not. No, they're not.
Yeah. What are we talking about? You have to win your conference tournament to guarantee a spot in the NCAA tournament.
That's right. They did the auto qualifiers. I forgot. I forgot that it's not the regular season champion, of which it should be.
Correct.
That is the biggest joke.
I agree
that it's
with you on
not
that.
The regular season champion. Although there's no regular season champion of any Power 5 conference that's not getting a bid.
Right.
So in essence, they took care of that, knowing that those are going to get automatic bids.
Right.
It's an automatic bid, basically. It's just not listed as such.
Right.
Winning the conference championship is not more important though, because ask that to Mike DeCourcy. It does not have more importance.
That's right, but that wasn't my argument. I mean, you could go down to the mid-major level, and you're saying basically if you win the A-Sun, it's the same as winning.
This is a stupid argument.
Make people leave. I don't.
I did not think that this was a stupid argument. First of all,
I did not either.
Either way, boy, got me off my train of thought. We got to take a break anyway, according to John Boyd, because up next, Mike DeCourcy will be joining us from the Big Ten Network and Sporting News. Back with more, brought to you by our good friends from BB's Market. Make sure you stop by your butcher, your baker, no matter what you need. Greatest custom meats around, in-house made products. I'm telling you, people, it is the spot to go. Former Wagon Wheel, right at South Walnut. Back with more Indiana Sports Beat Radio right after this.
We'll be right back to the golf club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. Whether
I agree, Leslie. Thank you very much.
So, yeah.
Dustin, you should...
Correct.
There you
That
go.
I would have not let Indiana in, but I wouldn't have let any team under 500. This isn't an Indiana thing. I'm just saying. And
That's
it's like,
stupid.
why? I don't understand why it's
just-
stupid.
On the face of it, you cannot just look at... Yeah, that's because of the competition. The level of competition matters.
Right.
Well, that's why
But
a
you
team
still-
like West Virginia is going to probably make the NCAA tournament because they're better than many teams with a winning conference record in the ACC or otherwise.
I'm just saying it's a reward to mediocrity is all I'm saying.
It's not mediocrity, dude. Do you know how
You
many
don't-
quad one? Okay, look at how many quad one wins are coming out of.
How many quad one?
Well,
I don't know.
It's a good time for Mike to get here. Mike, boy,
You got to calm these two down, Mike. They're arguing like children.
Time out,
and-
though. Mike's
and
not
you-
going to take my side on this. I'm just going to point that out
and
right
for
away.
one time, I've already taken the victory lap. I said, and for once, Mike DeCourcy is going to agree with me, baby.
Yep.
It is.
So
over.
what am I agreeing with?
So this is not going to change anything. I don't like the idea of a team that finishes below 500 in its conference getting into the NCAA
Say
tournament.
West Virginia. Say
All right.
West Virginia, for example.
I am the
Listen,
perfect.
we're not
we
live.
should
We
have
wanna
this
save your
discussion
answer.
on air because
Yes.
I have the perfect story for this.
All right.
Boom. How are you, by the way, Mike?
I'm good. How are you guys?
Great.
Well, I was doing fine.
You knew you wandered in the deep end of the pool. You were in trouble.
I was
I said-
like, oh no!
before-
I said, dude, you're so screwed. And Mike DeCourcy gets on here. I said he's going to tear you up.
When I initially brought up the conversation, I said Mike DeCourcy, who we're going to have on the program today, is not going to agree with anything I'm about to say.
And I said, you are right.
Mm-hmm.
I love it.
I know one thing he'll agree with. I bet he's excited about Ted Lasso season 3 coming out.
Yeah, absolutely.
When does that happen?
It's mid-March. They bring everything out in March. You know, I'm a big Oscar guy.
Oh, that's right.
And so last year they had the Oscars on the day of the Elite Eight, the last day of the Elite Eight. So we
That's
had
nice.
Kansas and
10 seconds, guys.
Okay.
With
So I'll
a
tell you
Southern
that.
charm
later.
at 2-star prices. Southern Stone Restaurant is part of Endeavor Hospitality's Wow Club.
This segment is brought to you by Southern Stone Restaurant. Now back to the golf club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio, coming to you here on this Tuesday, February 28th. Brought to you by our good friends from Southern Stone Restaurant, where I was out last night for Inside Indiana Basketball with Mike Whitson, Don Fisher. You have one more week to catch them out there. It was a packed house, of course, coming off that big win over Purdue last night. But make sure you stop by Southern Stone on Patterson and Rogers in Bloomington. Welcome in Mike DeCourcy from the Big Ten Network, as well as the Sporting News. I met Raphael. I got to meet Raphael at the Purdue game the other day, and I was so happy because I just happened to look at, oh my God, Raphael. I'm like, damn. And super, super nice guy.
Yes.
And people, he's a Purdue guy, by the way, if you don't know, but super nice guy. And I told him that I really enjoy catching you and Rafael each Sunday night. And if you're not doing that, people, you're not doing yourselves a favor on the Big Ten Network, Big Ten and beyond each Sunday night, wrapping up everything that's happened over the weekend, where everything is and where it's going. Mike and Rafael and Rick Pizzo do a great job, and it's an enjoyable start to. It's how I start my week, man. If I don't have that, I feel a little lost. I really start to. I hate that I didn't jump on that train at the very beginning, Mike. I was not into good scheduling, but once I got into it, I'm like, bam, and then I got it recorded now anyway. So, but great stuff every Sunday night. You guys do a great job of getting things wrapped up because there's so much to wrap up when it comes to Sunday night, man. Because it's all happened by then.
Yeah, it's hard to get it all in for sure. With the men's games, so we usually have quite a few on Sundays. Big Ten plays a lot of Sunday games. We got that. We've got the week ahead. We have multiple segments on the week ahead, and then of course whatever national topics. So it's been a show we've been working on since 2010-11 season. We've done the show with the exception of the 2021 season when we didn't do the program that year. So we've been running continuously 12 seasons, and it's a lot of fun to do. And I've been really proud to be a part of it for as long as I have.
And the Big Ten has kept you pretty busy because we've still got 2 games left, and you've got, I think, 8 teams within a game and a half trying to fight for one of those 3, basically one of the 3 double buys that are remaining, assuming Purdue wins one of their last 2 games and locks up the top spot. I mean, I don't remember this many teams being that competitive for that double bye this late in the season. I mean, it's been unique where every single game, every single night has meant something to somebody. I mean, it's been incredibly fun to watch the past couple months.
Well, you go all the way down to 14th place. And Wisconsin, Nebraska, Penn State are more or less tied for 14th, and tiebreakers, whatever it's possible to discern right now. But those 4 teams, I guess they're tied for 11th place or 12th place. But those 4 teams take you down to 14th in the standing, and they are 8-10 in the league. That tells you how deep the strength of this league goes. It's not overwhelming, and people are out there now just waiting for the league to not do well in the NCAA tournament, say, oh, see, they weren't any good. But the reality is that this league doesn't have a lot of great teams. It maybe has 2 if things break right. But it doesn't have a lot. And most of the teams that enter the NCAA tournament from this conference will be seeded to lose before the first weekend's over. They'll be seeded to lose one of the first 2 games, if not both of the first 2 games. So if they don't do well, it's because they weren't supposed to do well, but they're earning these spots. They earned them by winning in November, December, and by continuing to perform at a high level in the league. You know, it's funny because the ACC is all wound up now because all this is breaking against them. And they want to believe that it's unfair. Well, Ohio State, which is now in 13th place in the league, Ohio State's now in 13th. I'm sorry, I was doing the math wrong. Those teams aren't tied for 14th; they're tied for 12th. I was doing the math on a 16-team league. Yeah. We're not there yet. We're getting there. But I apologize for those errors. But the 13th place now, Ohio State had a lead on Carolina and gave it up on a late hook shot by Pete Nance that tied the game, and they lost in overtime. And that's the next to worst team in the Big Ten. And you could go all through and see examples of that. The Big Ten doesn't have many and hardly any easy nights. The ACC, oh, wow. We got Florida State coming in. Oh, we got Georgia Tech coming in. Oh, we got Louisville coming in. And that sounds great, but it isn't much when you get it on the floor. And it makes a difference. I mean, you are what your league is because that's who you're playing all the time. And there's a feeling in the ACC that is expressed by not just by fans but by coaches that too much emphasis is put on November and December, and it should be on now. Okay, well, like, how do we know what now means if you're bad in November and December? You go out and you win 66% of your games out of conference when you have the scheduling power of the ACC. I mean, you can buy whatever games are available when you're in the ACC, and yet they still didn't win. Did they beat the Big Ten in the ACC Big Ten Challenge? They did 8-6, not an overwhelming advantage. And then they went out and they won like 66% of their other non-conference games, while the Big Ten was winning like 77%. You win or lose. It's not anybody's fault but your own that you have bad teams in your league. And so that's how it breaks. If you're in the Big Ten, you don't have many of those. If you're in the Big 12, you don't have any of those at all. Zero. The worst team in the Big 12 beat the best team in the country by the virtue of the committee's bracket reveal, Alabama, by 24 points. Oklahoma, Alabama. Oklahoma wins by 24 points, and the game was never that close until the end. That's how strong the Big 12 has been this season.
Yeah, I was looking at the net rankings for conferences, and the ACC 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7th. They're 7th behind the Pac-12, behind the Mountain West, behind the Big East, behind the SEC. And that's not normal. We're not used to seeing the ACC down there. As a matter of fact, I don't recall the ACC being bad as a basketball conference. I would have to go back to maybe when I was a kid. But I think this is going to be an incredible tournament. I don't care. I love the teams from the Big 12. I say, let them all in, man. I was telling Dustin the difference between a game and say the ACC and the Big 12. Buddy, you better bring the gun and knife fight and everything else in the Big 12 every night. And there's some off nights in the ACC where that's just not the case. And buddy, the Big 12 is just a bloodied, battered league. I don't know if that's going to help them or hurt them come the tournament because they're so battle tested. Are they battle weary?
See, my theory and the statistics underscore what I believe, which is that you're more likely to be battle weary. If you look back at the leagues that have gotten 9 or more teams into the field, they generally underperform. They win about 55% of their games or something like that. Well, battle tested, shouldn't you do better than that? There aren't very many teams making the Sweet 16s out of those leagues or Elite Eights or the Final Fours. We have had 2 champions out of such leagues. But think about it. In 2011, the Big East got 11 out of their 16 teams into the field. They got 11 out of 16, and only 2 of those 11 made it to the Sweet 16. Only 2. And in those games, they each played another Big East member because there was no way to avoid it. And so it was UConn beat Cincinnati second round, and Marquette beat Syracuse second round. So they both advanced. Everybody else, 9 of the 11 went home. We saw it in the Big Ten 2021, the disappointment of that. We saw it last year with the disappointment of that. Whereas in 2018, when the Big Ten, I think, got 4, I think it was 4 in 2018. Michigan goes all the way to the title game. So I don't believe it battle tested for the most part. I think it wears you down. And that may happen with the Big Ten this year in the tournament. It may happen with the Big 12. We'll see. But I think that bringing up the Big 12 is a nice little door, a nice little opening so that we can discuss Dustin's concept of no team that isn't 500 in their conference should get into the field. And I think this is a favorite topic of mine. I'm not 1,000% sure that I was the first person who said that, but it's not a bad bet. I first wrote a column about that in 1988, I believe it was 1987 or 88. I wrote that no team should get into the tournament without a 500 record. And at that point in my career, I was covering Duquesne, which was in the Atlantic 10, a very good season for the Atlantic 10. Tommy Garrick and Silk Owens were at Rhode Island. They end up making the Elite 8 or Sweet 16 that year. West Virginia was good. It was a really good league. And so I wrote that column. And then a year later, I got a promotion to cover Pitt in the Big East. And so then you're on the road at Syracuse and Providence and Georgetown and blah, blah, blah. And I thought, and after I'd done pretty much the whole circuit of the road games, I thought back and I was like, man, that was wrong. There was such a difference. The Big East that, Alonzo Mourning and Derek Coleman and Billy Owens. And it just wasn't, they weren't the same.
And it's changed even more, I think.
What's that?
And I think it's changed even more to what you're talking about.
Yeah, it has. It really has, because the Atlantic 10 doesn't have very many Tom Garrick, Silk Owens backcourts now. They're not bad, but they're not great. They're probably only going to get one team in the league. And this is true not just for the Atlantic 10 Big East comparison, but pretty much everybody below the Power 5 level, Power 6 level, because you have to include the Big East. It's a big difference. Because I've seen it now for 35 years of covering. There are differences in the leagues. And so if you can create all leagues being equal, then yeah, it makes sense that no one who has a losing record should make it. But because they're not, I mean, there are those jarring differences. And there's a difference now between, as I said before, the Big 10, Big 12, where there's so few places to hide, and a league like the ACC, which is lugging around Notre Dame and Georgia Tech and Louisville having one of the worst major college seasons at least in the expanded bracket era. They are flirting with the worst ever. I think beating Clemson at home might have pulled them out of that ignominy, but it's still a terrible season. And so I think that we're seeing those differences, and that's why the idea that you have to be 500 doesn't hold up. It because the leagues are so different. You're in the Big 12, and if you were in a different league, if you were in the Mountain West, you'd be like, 14-2 or something, or 13-5 or whatever it is, and you're in the Big 12 and you're like 7-11 and like happy that you're that good.
Right. I guess, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to articulate this point as well as it is in my brain. So,
before you even attempt it, you're wrong.
I understand that. I guess so. These are the points that I'd like to counter with, and I'm not here to make an argument. What I'm saying is, for me, the Power 5 leagues have ample opportunity to get teams into the NCAA tournament. I don't think anybody would disagree with that, whether it's through non-conference scheduling, whether it's through winning your regular season, winning the conference tournament. And you go down to the mid-major level, and it's basically, unless you have maybe one or two losses or win your conference tournament, that's your only chance to get in. So to me, I understand that there's a different level. Let's use Wisconsin, Nebraska. They would dominate probably the A-Sun or the Horizon League or another league. But you might have, I'm going to use Kennesaw State as an example. They just won the A-Sun, had a phenomenal year. If they lose one game in the A-Sun tournament, they're out. They're done. I would prefer to see a team that wins their league and a conference tournament champion from those mid-major leagues, as opposed to a team that finishes below the 500 mark. And I'm not here to disagree. Again, if Wisconsin is in those leagues, they're probably undefeated and they win, and there's no comparison there. I just feel like when you are below 500, it's rewarding mediocrity for a chance to win a national championship.
Well, I mean, I think first of all, you have to remember that the teams that we're talking about all had better have significant out-of-conference achievement in order to be considered. And let's use West Virginia as an example. West Virginia played Pitt. I'm not remembering whether it was a home game or a road game. I think I can find that out in a second.
They played at Pitt.
They played at Pitt. Okay, so they play at Pitt. Pitt's now leading the ACC. If Pitt wins against Notre Dame tonight or tomorrow, if they beat Notre Dame, they clinch a share of the ACC championship. West Virginia went in there, won by 30. And that's the league champion. Or prospective league champion. So that's you have to do those things or you're not in this discussion. So I don't think it's fair to describe it as mediocrity. I think your league has to be extraordinary for you to have a sub 500 record in that league and still be considered. And then that's another element. And then I think that what's overlooked, Dustin, is that with the way the NCAA tournament is set up with 32 automatic bids, and then you take out, let's say, the 10 leagues that are likely or possible to have more than one bid in a given year. We'll include the Atlantic 10, even though this year they don't have any chance. So that leaves 22 bids into the tournament out of 68 teams. So 22 teams divided by 68. Wait, where is that? 22 divided by 68 is 32.3%, 32.4%. So that's 1/3 of the field, okay? 1/3 of the NCAA tournament field goes to those leagues that you're describing. And they don't have 1/3 of the best teams. Let's be honest. They don't.
Right.
So they're already getting granted this special thing, this opportunity to play for the championship. So I don't think they're getting a raw deal generally. I think where they get a tough deal is somebody like College of Charleston. I have demonstrated over the years that if you dominate a league in the way that College of Charleston is, if you're winning way more than 80% of your regular season games, you have a terrific chance of doing well in the NCAA tournament. Those teams do well. It usually takes an exceptional team that's won 80% of its games in a higher league that to take them out of the tournament. People say, "Oh, where'd that upset come from?" And then you look and they're like, "Well, they win all the time, so they know how to win."
Right.
So like if College of Charleston loses their conference tournament final, if they lose the Colonial final and they don't get in, I think that's a mistake. And I've tried to argue this with the committee to respect dominance more than they do. I think that those teams should get more consideration than they do. Florida Atlantic would be another. I don't think there are any others in this season that fall into that category, but those two do. And that's why I've consistently been seeding them higher than the other mid-majors. It's what, if you look at Lenardi does his bracket differently than I do. I don't follow, like, if you're in first place, like if you have the tiebreaker in a mid-major conference that I'm putting you in, because the reality is nobody decides their conference tournament by the regular season champ. So I can put anybody in there that I want and be accurate.
Right.
So what I do, like, okay, College of Charleston and Hofstra have the same record in conference. Hofstra has a win over College of Charleston. So they're the number one seed in the tournament. So Lenardi has them in, and then he has Charleston on his first four out as or maybe next four out, but as a contender, but not in. See, to me, I think if Hofstra goes out and beats Charleston again in the Colonial final, I think that Charleston should be in there on the basis of dominance. They were a dominant team this year. They didn't play the greatest schedule. Well, it's not easy to play the greatest schedule when you're College of Charleston. Nobody wants to play you. And I will say that the other element of this that really kind of frosts me, because I've been talking about it for 20 years almost, is that the mid-majors, here's what too many of them do. Okay, hey, Duke, you want to play me? No? Okay, they hang up the phone. See, nobody will play us. And then they go out and schedule bad teams. And instead of saying College of Charleston, say, calling VCU, or VCU calling Colgate, or whatever. Like those games will help you in your, because if you beat good teams that have high rankings, it'll help you. Liberty has always got good rankings.
Right.
I mean, when they have a good team, they've been a high net team for a team out of their league, the ASUN. They're like, when they were good 2 years ago, they had a great net ranking. When they were good in 2019, they had a great net ranking. So why doesn't everybody call in Liberty like 5 minutes after the end of the previous season?
Right.
But these teams never play each other. That's one of the reasons why I wasn't happy about the Bracket Busters going away, because it was the one time when they literally finally agreed to play one another. They all look at it as, well, if I lose to them, then I'm eliminating myself. But you're delusional, because they're not taking you anyway, because you're not playing enough good teams.
Right.
David, thanks a lot for jumping on. We've got to take a quick break. The great Mike DeCourcy from the Sporting News and Big Ten Network is with us. We've got more to talk about when we come back. Indiana takes on Iowa tonight in an important game as the Hoosiers are looking to secure that double bye in the Big Ten tournament and secure a higher bid in the NCAA tournament coming up overall. Coming back with lots more, brought to you by our good friends from Goteen, a part of the Endeavor Hospitality Wow Club. Goteen is for those on the go, full of fresh protein, delicious tasting snacks. Pick them up at BB's Market or GoteenBites.com. Back with more right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Golfers, here's a deal you won't want.
Well, that would be the hell of the chakra of the world if Wisconsin and Illinois were able to beat Purdue. That just ain't. I mean, Zach Edey would have to fall down the stairs. Literally
down the stairs.
I'm just saying. I'm not wishing that. I'm just saying something crazy, catastrophic would have to happen for.
Please don't say that. Don't speak it into existence, as they say.
Yeah, no, I'm not wishing that. Not at all.
All right. Somebody had a comment.
Have to disappear. Someone would have to. Aliens would have to kidnap him for a weekend or so for that to happen. How's that? And then they might get him and say, "Oh, we need you on our team."
It's like
we've got an intramural league back home. We could use you in.
Somebody had a comment. What if a player had their primary player go out with an injury, then he comes back, goes on a winning streak, but they finish below 500 in the conference? I've always wondered this. I don't know if you want me to save this for the show or not.
You save everything if it's good.
Well, I'm not saying it's good. It's just a question I have.
Well, then, of course, yes.
I'll save it.
Let's see. What's up next for you, Mike? Do I know?
We're preparing our All-America team, our Player of the Year, Coach of the Year.
So that's from Other Sporting News, then, right?
Yes.
Oh, you know what? I will say this, and we can talk about the Indiana Purdue game. Zach Edey pretty much put to bed any question, I think, of, I don't know, Player of the Year in the Big Ten with Trace not having quite the game he needed to, although his team won. I do like how he was really unselfish. He still ended up with a lot of assists. Come out in the second half, he scores 6 big points, but yeah, there's no way Zach Edey is pretty much that's a done deal now. I think that what will happen is Trace Jackson-Davis will end up being the Defensive Player of the Year because of his blocks.
His blocks are unbelievable. My goodness. I when people get upset about Player of the Year, I'm like, okay, so he's a first-team All-American. There are like 4,000 Division I players. He's one of the 5 best. You think that's like an honor to sneeze at? It's 5 out of 4,000. You put your name on a list that Larry Bird and Isaiah Thomas and Michael Jordan and Bill Walton and like everybody who's great has been on one of those lists over the years. I mean, that's a heck of a distinction.
Pastries, all made fresh and mouthwatering. Stop by Feast, Market, and Cellar today.
This segment is brought to you by Remax Advanced Realty, Indie Home Pros team by Cheryl Sizemore. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat, here on this Tuesday, February 28th. I hope you're enjoying the semi-spring weather that we've been having. Brought to you by our good friend Cheryl Sizemore from Remax Realty with over 20 years of experience in the Indianapolis area. If you're looking for a home in that area, you need Cheryl and her 2 decades of experience. It could be the difference between you getting the home you want or not. Reach out to her, Cheryl at IndyHomePros.com. Welcome back. Our friend Mike DeCourcy from the Sporting News and Big Ten Network is with us, along with Dustin Schutte, of course. And Mike, the player of the year, the debate had been raging. Trace Jackson Davis had really made a charge. He was just playing out of his mind. But I think the Purdue Indiana game kind of put that argument to rest. Not that Edie had a great game, but they were able to hold Trace Jackson Davis in check. 0 points at the half, although he come out with a strong second half. 6 points in the first 4 minutes, and playing within himself and not trying to force things probably went a long way in helping Indiana win that night. A lot of assists from him, but the argument for player of the year is Zach Edey is going to win that going away probably in both the national and in the Big Ten. But I think that Trace Jackson Davis will end up being the defensive player of the year because he is blocking virtually every other shot that goes up.
Can we have the court stenographer read back Jim's part of his discussion where he said, not that Edey had a great game. I just want to point something out.
Yeah.
26 points, 16 rebounds, 3 assists, 2 blocks. That's how high he has set the bar.
It is.
You can say that.
As soon as you brought it, I knew I was coming. I'm like, yeah, I fell right into it. And it's so easy to do because when it's not 32 points and it's not something crazy, it was just 26 points and 14 rebounds or whatever it was.
But he does it himself. He does. He does it himself. That's because the bar has been set so high. It's understandable that you did that. I wasn't mocking you. I just want to point out that
I know, and I'll be honest with you, I had forgotten his numbers for that night because had so
they
many
lost
other numbers in my mind.
And he wasn't. It's not the best game he's ever played, and that says something as well that he could go for 26 and 16, and one could say, well, but he has had an incredible season, and it's from a player who, while has grown in college basketball. It's one of my favorite things about doing this. I covered every game of Kenyon Martin's career, and I went from him as a freshman to struggling in interviews. He had anxiety-based speech impediment. Like when he talked with people that he didn't know, he had like a speech impediment. And from there to being a first-team All-American Player of the Year as a senior, and now he's done television work because he's grown so much, and it's just a beautiful thing. And you see that with Zach, who is so new to the game relative to the other elite players, and has grown from a guy who had to learn how to chin a rebound because when most players chin a rebound, like what they're doing is they're putting their elbows up to guard against everybody. What they call it chinning, because you're putting the ball here under your chin where it's hard to get at. You have the most strength applied to it. And also you have your 2 elbows out so guys can't get near you. And when the average 6'8" guy chins a rebound, his elbow is near the other guy's bicep or his shoulder. When Zach chins a rebound, his elbow is by a player's head, and we all know how that goes, what happens. So he had to learn a special process on how to gather a rebound and put it in a place where it couldn't be easily dislodged for him. That's how much he had to grow as a player. And now we've got 26, 16, and 3, and we're thinking, yeah, but could you do more? I love that about college basketball. I'm sure teachers who take kids into the start of a school year, and then by the end of the year, they're reading, War and Peace or whatever, and they see that growth and they're thrilled by it. I'm not a teacher and I'm not in classrooms and all that, but I see that in the players, and I'm not the person responsible, but I love observing that growth with various players, whether it's on court with a guy like Zach, or whether it's, speaking to players and interviewing them and getting to know them a little bit and watching them develop over the course of those 3-4 years that they spend in college. It's a beautiful thing. And we see it really reflected nicely in Zach Edey.
Here's a compliment to both Zach Edey and to Indiana. In the 2 games, 59 points, 34 rebounds. And the 2 stories were Indiana won, obviously, both games. But everybody was talking about, after the first one, Trace Jackson Davis, and after the second one, Jalen Hood-Schifino. I mean, it just speaks to your point, Mike, that it's like Matt Painter said it after one of the I think maybe Maryland or something, like it's pretty good when you can go out and have 20 and 14 and you were just okay.
Right.
It's just insane.
Go ahead, Jim.
Well, go ahead, because I was going to change the points.
No, go ahead. It's your show.
I was going to actually now talk about freshman of the year. It had been long thought that it was going to be Bryce Sensabaugh, but as this season has gone on, I'm like, you know what? Jalen Hood-Schifino, to me, is the freshman of the year, and Bryce Sensabaugh does not have a Trace Jackson Davis that he has to share any that's taken away from what he's doing, because Bryce Sensabaugh is the best player on his team. And that's not a crack. That's a great thing to be. That just shows more of his talent. But I also, because of what Jalen Hood-Schifino has been able to do with a potential player of the year on his team, and especially here of late, I think he's the freshman of the year in the Big Ten. And I know that's going to sound a little biased, and I don't mean it to be, because I thought it was Sensabaugh all year. But I just think that Jalen Hood-Schifino has done and just shown how valuable he is, and especially in that Purdue game. I mean, he just took it on. That was Damon Bailey in 1991. Seriously, that's exactly what that was. I was in that building when Damon Bailey did the same thing. Nobody touched the ball hardly. But Damon, he scored the last 11 points of the game to win the state championship. Jalen Hood-Schifino is just weaving in and out of traffic of that. I still cannot imagine. He's down there weaving in and out of that lane with all of those legs that are, some of the legs alone are 6 foot tall. It's just crazy, but I think he's the freshman of the year.
Yeah, I agree with you. I had Bryce had such a great start to the season, and the Buckeyes as well. And when they were winning, I saw that being sort of the impending result. But as Ohio State started to lose, I started to look harder at Braden Smith. I thought Braden Smith's the direction he brought to the Purdue offense, and when they were dominating the league, was worthy of that award. But as they have slipped a little bit, I think now with what Jalen has done to elevate the Hoosiers, yeah, he's got Trace on his team, but he's a point guard. His job is to make the Hoosiers go, and whether that's getting the ball to Trace for one of his 30-point nights, which has happened with Jalen as point guard, or going for 35 himself against the best team in the league, I think he absolutely would get my vote for freshman of the year. And to me, I'm not sure it's particularly close now. I don't think that you can. You can, but I don't think it's wise to reward the player who's on the 13th place team when you have a guy who's on the 2nd place team playing at the level Jalen is. That winning matters to me in postseason awards. I think that has to be a factor. Do you impact winning? And sometimes, like a young man like Antonio Davis up at Detroit Mercy, his teams wasn't great to begin with, and then they lost 2 starters to injury, and they're still winning some games, and they didn't have a great year. But I think that he impacted winning without a doubt. And so I'm not going to put him on an All-America ballot, but when I was asked for nominees for a particular award for his position, I went ahead and included him because I think he does impact winning, even though he's he's taking all those shots. I think he does it in service of his team's best possible results. So I think that that's the difference. And I'm not saying that Bryce is not trying to win. I think he is, but it's not having in general, the desired impact. I mean, they just ended a long losing streak with the win over Illinois on Sunday. I think that it has to be about more than just he's talented, because he is. There are rewards for Bryce's talent. Maybe this year, maybe next year, he'll be an NBA draft pick. But this is college basketball, and whether you win or lose, the game does have to matter.
Absolutely. And Jalen is continuing to actually raise his draft stock, much to the dismay of Hoosier fans, because I sent out a tweet Saturday night that says, "Enjoy this performance, Hoosier fans. I doubt you'll see him in Mackey Arena again." And I'm sure Purdue fans would be happy about that. Next question that is changed. Coach of the year. That seemed to be kind of set. Well, I don't know if it was set between Matt Painter and maybe Chris Collins. Chris Collins kind of seemed to be in the lead in my mind, in my feeble mind. And you cannot take away Matt Painter for what they're doing, of course. But Mike Woodson, where does Indiana finish? And he's going to get a ton of interest as well. So I think this is a 3-horse race. And I don't think that this one is decided yet.
It's a great point. When you think about it, remember, Indiana was picked to win it, and they're probably not going to do that. So that will impact people's judgment. But
we were wrong.
The fact that they endured the number of injuries that they did, and they had to reinvent themselves, although they had a ready substitute, they did have to reinvent themselves at the most important position on the floor. And so I think that he has done a good job of rebuilding that program, rebuilding that team around Jalen Hood-Schifino as your primary playmaker, when the plan for months had been to convert Jalen from a point guard into a secondary ball handler, into a wing who could attack off the bounce, who had the freedom to do that, who had the freedom to get it and go if somebody found him with an outlet, but who was not going to be the person that they looked to first for that, not going to be the person who initiated most of the offense. And then Xavier gets hurt, and you have to make a complete switch at that position halfway through the season, give or take. And that's not easy to do. And they took a couple of games to get it right. And obviously the injury to Race impacted that repositioning. And so it took a little while to get it right, and now it's right. And now they have a team that's capable of contending for a deep run in the NCAA tournament, and the only team that will sweep the Purdue Boilermakers this year in regular season play.
And something that should be pointed out, Mike, if you're talking about Purdue's schedule, they drew the bottom 5 teams in the conference, 4 of those twice and 1 of them once. So a good chunk of their wins is coming against the bottom 5.
Well, yeah, but remember the bottom 5, other than the bottom 1, it really doesn't make that much of a difference. It makes a little difference, but most of the teams that they're playing in that circumstance are pretty good, or tournament contenders. So it has helped. I don't think there's any question about that. But they also did go out, and then this gets into whether or not the outside play matters or not. But they did beat Xavier. They did beat Duke.
They made their hay early.
Yeah,
they absolutely made their hay early in the season. Tonight, Mike, Indiana takes on the Iowa Hawkeyes in a game that's important for both teams. Everything's important, but Indiana definitely needs this because they are fighting for this double bye, and for that to happen, they cannot lose either of their last 2 home games, or fortunately their 2 games, and both of them are at home. Fortunately, tonight against the Hawkeyes, and then this weekend on Sunday against Michigan, who is maybe the hottest team in the Big Ten. right now. But Iowa coming in, Indiana had a 21-point lead. This is a game that has haunted Indiana all year because, man, you can start what if and just from the Iowa game alone, and that really, really hurt them and started a bad stretch for them. But that's obviously not going to be the case tonight. We will hopefully see some frantics, as Dustin coined the great phrase yesterday. I love it. Frantics. How is his stare down?
Mike loves puns. We just learned Mike loves
puns.
Oh,
no, that's great. That is great.
It is. I loved it. That's why I'm like going, dude, you've got to get that out there and coin it.
Trademark that, yes.
Somehow, man, because I've already used it once.
That's a great one.
How was his last frantic not a T? He goes over and stands like a 6-year-old child staring down a referee. That's attempted intimidation of an official. He continues to get away with this crap.
But he's not the first to do that. John Chaney was big on that. John Chaney was
Chaney also threatened to kill John Calipari.
John Chaney at a game I was at once let his assistant, who was brilliant, coach the team. And of course, John was brilliant as well. But he had a great assistant coach that had been with him forever. Jim Maloney, I think his name was, died in a tragic car accident. A great guy. But this one time out, John let him coach it. And he went over and he just stood like at the hash mark and looked across the floor at the ref and just stared at him for the entire timeout and never stopped. And so this was sort of a modified version of that. The difference being proximity. Fran was much closer than John was. John was basically on the opposite side of the floor. In this case, Fran was, basically 10 feet away, if that. And it was interesting toward the end of it when the ref took a step forward, like, no, I'm not backing down from you. You're not winning because you're changing my mind. You got to better go make some threes. And they did. And I think if Indiana didn't learn from its struggles in the second half against the Hawkeyes not to turn their back on them, I think Saturday would convince them, because you said they were up 21 at half, basically. Michigan State was up close to that in the end of the game and still lost the game. Once again, you see another team go into overtime and lose because of the choice not to foul up 3. But I thought that play that Peyton Sanford scored the tying 3 on was the perfect illustration. The greatest illustration was 2008 when Mario Chalmers hit his. But the perfect illustration for those who are still agnostic about fouling up 3, you have a Michigan State player guarding the post, literally guarding the post. Why? Like that's like if you're somebody's in, somebody wants your jewelry, or somebody breaks into your house and you don't guard the jewelry, you guard the toilet. I mean, there's nothing going to happen in the post. It's going to hurt you. You're up 3 points. If they throw it into the guy and he shoots a layup, you win. So why are you guarding that? And then they had an exchange at the top of the key that involved Sanford and Connor McCaffrey. Now, Connor McCaffrey is a terrific college basketball player, and he had made threes in that game. But you have Peyton Sanford, who is, at his best, literally one of the best shooters in the conference. And he had already made multiple threes in that game. And Joey Hauser, when the exchange happens, does what everybody does. You take a step back because you don't want anybody to go and beat you off the bounce into the lane. Except, why? If they go down the lane and make a layup, you win. But the reason, this is the reason why the defend instead of foul up 3 strategy is broken, because defensive players do what they always do. And 75% of what they always do is designed to keep the ball out of the lane or out of the post. And that means pinching, that means diving, that means digging, and all the other things that they do to keep things from happening in the lane. And all that matters at that point is that no one gets an open 3. So the best thing to do is to abandon your regular principles and foul because it's an automatic habit breaker. Because at that point, your only intent is make sure you foul the guy with little enough time that his only choice will be to go to the line, make, and intentionally miss. And Wisconsin saw that happen on Saturday to Michigan State and end up losing. And Wisconsin, now they're like the literal last team for me going into the weekend. They're the literal last team in the field, and they have a chance. I mean, they've got Michigan beat on the road. It's almost a clincher. They got 1.5 seconds left after they apparently failed to foul on the way up the floor because Greg Gard did say that he tried. Okay, so you got 1.5 seconds left. So when the ball comes in, whoever is defending the target dives after the ball into the player. What bad can happen? You foul, he goes to the line, and you're in the make-miss scenario. But instead, the defender tries to leap and deflect the ball, and it goes over his head. He falls down. Hunter Dickinson has a wide-open three-point shot. I'll never understand how coaches can look at this happen over and over again and look at why it happens and not buy into it and not buy into the concept. Because, again, it's not that defending is going to fail every time, but defending puts you in a scenario where your players are going to react as they do in the other 39 minutes and 50 seconds, because you've trained them to be great defensive players. They have to do these things. For you to be a great defensive team, that's how you do it. You protect the lane, you protect the post. And Michigan State had literally 3 players that were not guarding the three-point line on Saturday when Peyton Sandford made his shot. 3 players. And it's a lot easier to get an open shot when that's all you want and no one's out, or only 2 players out of 5 are out there trying to make it hard.
It's like the women, and it's easy in hindsight because I didn't think of this at the time, but missing that second,
right.
Mackenzie Holmes, if she would have missed the second free throw on purpose and caused a scrum, that would have at least taken up half of that, what time was left, if not all. It does.
I will defend. I'll defend.
But I didn't think of it at the time either. I'll be honest with you.
Even if Coach Morin had thought of it, here's a couple of things that you bring into it though. The clock doesn't start. It doesn't start. I think until someone touches it. Once that happens, if they gather the rebound, they can still call it. So they might have had less time by a fraction. But it also brings into the possibility, the scenario of the foul. If you're going to contest the foul, the rebound, so that they don't have that much time, what if you foul? Pitt versus Butler in 2011. The Butler team that made the championship game, the second Butler team that made the championship game, Pitt had them beat. All they had to do was clinch it with free throws. And they missed, I think it was a front end, or they missed both, and they missed the second. And one of the Pitt players fouled Matt Howard going for the rebound when he should have just let him have it. And he fouled him, and then so Matt Howard gets to move 90 feet and make 2 free throws. So that I understand why Indiana's women didn't do that. That opens doors that you don't want to open, as opposed to the foul-up 3 strategy, which only opens a small door that you have to basically pull off a miracle to enter. And I just don't think that, if teams were habitually avoiding the scenario that I talked about where you're defending what doesn't need to be defended, if they could show that they can habitually avoid that, then it's a different argument. But I don't see that. I see what I saw on Saturday happen, where everybody's in the lane, guarding players that don't need to be guarded. And you're out there leaving Peyton Sandford, a simple dribble exchange gets him a wide open 3.
Mike, when's your next bracket release?
Bracket will be this afternoon. We've got that going. I've been also doing daily seed updates. It's hard to do a bracket every day. It takes a lot of time. So it's not hard to do the seed update because the seed list does, changes a little from game to game, but you don't have to create the matchups that avoid conference conflicts and rematches and all that stuff. And so the seed list now is coming out every day that I don't do a bracket. Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Wednesday, Thursday. So that will be out as well during the course of the week. I'll be on Wednesday night post game discussing my bracket on FS1, and then we'll be back for the final episode of Big Ten Basketball and Beyond regular season style on Sunday night. And for the sporting news, we got early next week, we got our All-America team, our Coach of the Year, and the Player of the Year coming up. So a lot of stuff going on as we get closer to Selection Sunday.
Where can they find the bracket release?
Yes, on my Twitter at TSN Mike, you can find out all the content that I produce, as well as at CBB on Fox. They release it a few seconds before me, and then I retweet their post, and so you can find that there. And then of course BTN and FS1 are where they always are, and sportingnews.com for any of my articles that you don't catch on Twitter.
Mike DeCourcy from the Sporting News and the Big Ten Network. Appreciate him being with us each and every week. Our good friend. Appreciate you, Mike.
Thanks, fellas. It was fun.
Thank you very much, brother. We've got lots more coming up. Chronic Hoosier comes up next. Don't forget, we're brought to you by Barbara Pop Real Estate Services down in the Louisville, Southern Indiana area. Floyd, Clark, Harrison, Washington, Jefferson counties, all down through Southern Indiana. They have served those communities for 3 decades. And no one can help you get into the home you want quicker and less expensive than Barbara Pop Real Estate Services. Reach out to Barbara at barbarapop.com or our friend Matt Lincoln, Matt at barbarapop.com. We've got more coming up with Chronic Hoosier up next here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio.
We'll be right back to the golf club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Andy Moore. Hello. Hey, Chronic. What's up, brother?
What's happening today, gentlemen?
How are you, man?
I could not be better. That's not true. I could not be at work, but other than that, I couldn't be better.
Well, there's that. Yeah. Man, that game on Sunday was awesome. I sure hated to see Caitlin Clark hit that shot. I'm going to be honest with you, not being a homer, but anybody. And actually, Iowa could have still won that game if it had been somebody else.
There's a piece of me that is just nauseated with the coverage, the women's game. It's like people are still, media folks are still grappling with the notion that there's a lot of really good players on a lot of good teams. And I understand, it's a lot easier to brand just a couple of them and put all the eggs in that basket. But, stepping back, I kind of like the women going into the postseason ticked off.
Oh, yeah.
And salty. But kind of in the broader sense, you step back, and that was a hell of a basketball game. I mean, whistle to whistle. It's rare that you see a game like that live up to the hype. And, if that's going to be the star character, I'm glad she was able to play her role. And I cannot wait to see them lose.
Yeah. If Indiana can do what they did there, neutral courts are not a problem.
No doubt. And, they're going to be able to roll that home court advantage, up to the semifinals? In the women's format, regional
in the NCAA?
Host? Yeah.
I think just the first and second rounds, right?
Is it just 1 and 2?
I believe, because then they go to South Carolina for 3 and 4, and then it's the Final Four, right?
Yeah,
just 2, 4, 6 games total.
I love seeing them pissed off.
There's only 2 regions, so they'll be in the same region as South Carolina, I bet. I hope not. Well, that sucks because that means they'd play them in the first game instead of the championship. But
yeah, I think it's, at the end of the day, I think it's a net positive for everybody involved. And I know no coach ever wants to take an L. But you look at the way those girls bounce back after the Michigan State loss, gives you a chance to refocus going into the second season. And And like I said, I think, in the grand scheme of things, I think it was good for the women's game to see Caitlin hit that shot. As much as I hated to see it go in, it was an amazing shot. It just was.
10 seconds.
I think at the end of the day, that was great for the girls, and I hope more people take notice.
.com. Fresh Fork is a proud partner of WOW Network. This segment is brought to you by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio, brought to you by our good friends from Powered by Andy Moore Honda, Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer, where you can get the best in new and used vehicles and more to your door at andymoorehonda.com. Please welcome aboard Chronic Hoosier. How are you, sir?
I am glad to be back. Thanks for having me, guys.
Absolutely. Always a fun one. It was a hell of a weekend in basketball all the way around. Dustin Schutte, just not just the Indiana games. Of course, Indiana knocking off Purdue to sweep Purdue and to win at Mackey for the first time in 10 years. The women, that unbelievable game at Iowa. But they head into the Big Ten tournament as the #1 seed, which starts this week. The men have a game tonight against Iowa to replay a game in which they had a 20-point lead in and lost. But they're going to be they'll remember that. But they also I don't think they need any of that for motivation, Chronic. They need to win these last two games to secure a #2 seed in the tournament.
Yeah, I think Woody said it best after the game, and I saw the team account share it. The quote, I think, was something to the effect that you cannot go back home and not validate that win in West Lafayette. You cannot. And I think that's imperative for them to internalize that message. Because as we've seen, the highest highs can quickly be replaced with a loss. And this time of year, with all the implications, whether it be conference seeding, NCAA seed line, you just have to hold home court. You have to seize those opportunities and maximize what's in front of you. And for, as we've talked about for the last several months now, for a team that has battled back from the disappointment of December and early January and the injuries and everything that ensued, to put themselves in this position now where they're in control of their own destiny, sitting in a 4-way tie in second place in the league. This is theirs to lose. And with Indiana, you cannot lose at home. You just can't. For a team that is renowned for their ups and downs home and away, you absolutely have to be able to lock these last two up and put yourself in the best position to, possibly win the program's first conference tournament, and certainly give yourself a chance to compete deep into March with a good NCAA seed line.
And one of the things that I think is, this might sound weird, but I think it's almost beneficial that Indiana is playing an Iowa team that came back from a 21-point deficit, a month ago, when they had that struggle. Because I feel like if you're playing Minnesota or a Wisconsin or a Penn State, I mean, those teams are good. But in those situations, there might be more of a letdown. I feel like for Indiana to come home and play a team that they should have beat, they let one slip away, they're going to have that bitter taste in their mouth. So it keeps the hunger there, as opposed to if you're playing a team maybe you've already beaten or you're not going to take as seriously.
No doubt. And I think it gives them a chance inside the locker room to excise some of those demons and just validate who they know themselves to be, who they know themselves to be capable of. And honestly, what a better foil than Iowa. It seems like it transcends all sports right now. Iowa's just become such an easy team to hate with some of the personalities and certainly some of the administration over there. But I think they play a great villain for tonight's matchup in Assembly Hall. And, let's see what Shenanigans Friends has in store, because after the post-game comments and what happened in-game last time these two teams faced, my guess is you're not going to see a lot of love lost between the two benches, and I'm here for that kind of action.
I'm just going to
I love a good shenanigan. I love a good shenanigan.
I do too. I was just going to throw this out. Is that I can't remember, and so jog my memory, either of you two. Has there been a more villainous men's and women's basketball team in the same season than Iowa is this year? I can't remember it. Like not
in the conference that I recall.
Even if you go to even if you throw in the rivalry with like Purdue or something, like generally Purdue and Indiana, they have likable players. Like it's just like it's the rivalry. It's not necessarily the players or the guys on the bench or whatever the case might be. I'm trying to remember like the two most aggravating. That's a great word.
People in the conference on both sides of men's and women's basketball come from the same school. That is, yes, there's no doubt. Well, Caitlin Clark is the best player in women's basketball. I will continue to always preface it with that. She is the most aggravating and arrogant. That's just all you can say. She is just arrogant beyond belief. Fran is just his antics or frantics, as Dustin coined the great phrase yesterday. They're beyond. I'm tired. I'm tired of them. I was tired of him when he got the T rescinded, which I don't know how the hell that happens. Then the other day we see him do the 5-foot stare down with the official, attempted intimidation of official, doesn't get teed up again. He's getting away with stuff that's the Big Ten's fault. They need to take care of that. It's ridiculous, and I'm tired of seeing it.
Now, I'm thinking back.
Of course, everybody's bringing up Bob Knight. You know that, Chronic.
Oh yeah. No, Wisconsin certainly had some villainous teams on the men's side. Aaron Kraft over at Ohio State was probably one of the more easy guys in the league to ever hate. Although you certainly would love to have him on your team. I don't know that I ever want Brad Davison on my team. Sorry, Tyra. I don't know. I don't know. I'm gonna have to chew on that one for a while and let me get back with you. But it's certainly up there, and it's all the way down the line at Iowa. I'm still salty about the league's decision during the COVID year to let Ohio State leapfrog Indiana, but that's neither here nor there. But Gary Barta is certainly not high up on my list of rival administrators either, for a number of different reasons. But not the least of which is because they've enabled Fran. But quite frankly, Fran just acts a fool. I mean, he shows his ass on a regular basis, and it's unbecoming of the league. I understand it's passion is welcome and celebrated, but let's be honest, he acts like a horse's ass more often than not. And it's grown really stale. The problem is, as
we've seen, it seems planned. With Bob Knight, you knew it was just him erupting, or there was nothing planned about what he was doing until the NCAA tournament came around. Then I know he did some things with purpose to take pressure off of his team, but not this kind of stuff. And nothing he ever did like this. So much of what Fran does looks planned out. And the hold me back thing, I've said it before. I'm like, let him go. What the hell is he going to do? Let him go. He's not going to do anything. It's
performative. It's 100% performative, but it's frustrating on a number of fronts, not the least of which because it's effective. It's effective. We've seen it have impact on games. The way in which he can get officials to respond to his antics. But quite frankly, it's dangerous. And I think it's something that the league needs to take better control of and rein it in before it spills into something that gets really, really ugly. And we've seen this with Juwan Howard at Michigan. When you have guys who have a pattern and a habit and a practice of letting their emotions go out of control, it's a bad look for the league, and it can put a lot of people in a really bad situation that's totally controllable. And, quite frankly, like when Indiana visited Iowa City, for a coach to enter another team's huddle, it's just so far beyond the pale. And, even more so that it wasn't teed up on the spot, because quite frankly, what he does in situations like that is just a powder keg waiting to blow up. And we've all seen enough ugliness spill out onto the floor. You would expect the adults in the gym to take the lead, and when they show that they're incapable of doing that, at some point it's past time for the league to take action and put a stop to it before it gets a whole lot uglier than what it's already been.
I know we got to let you go. What's up next for you, my friend? Indiana taking on Iowa tonight. Are you able to get to the game, or
I am going to be at the game. I'll tell you what, I've had a hell of a week, man. I went down my wife's birthday last week and got the opportunity to go see Derek Trucks play his slide guitar at the Ryman Auditorium. Probably the greatest slide guitarist on earth. And then follow that up with Billy Strings at Bridgestone. Just a block down the street.
Wow,
and,
big arena there.
Yeah, and super cool, super cool setup too. Loved every minute of it. But I thought I'd kind of tapped out on just jaw-droppingly amazing individual performances, and then to turn around and see what Fino did up in West Lafayette, and then capped by that basketball game Sunday in Iowa. I'm not quite ready to let the amazing go. We're on a heck of a roll right now, so hopefully the Hoosiers can continue it and roll that momentum into a strong close to the season. And like we said when it all began, the expectation was a team that could compete for a title. Certainly top 2, top 3 seemed to be the floor for this team. And just taking a step back here with 1 week left to go, at least in the regular season, and appreciating the journey that we've been on, and even more excited for what's still to come. So can't wait to get that going. And brother, it's almost March. So best time of the year to be a Hoosier.
Tomorrow, baby. It is March. Chronic Hoosier, can't thank you enough. Appreciate you very much.
Thanks for having me. We'll catch you next week.
As always, Chronic Hoosier brought to you by our good friends from Andy Moore Honda, Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer. Go to andymoorehonda.com where you get more to your door. We've got more coming up, of course, here on Indiana Sports Beat. We'll talk about Indiana's game tonight. Someone asked about what it would take to Indiana to get a number 3 seed. We'll talk about that as well. And while I'm talking to you, do me a favor, pull out your phone, go to your Twitter, give me a follow on Twitter at Jim Coyle, ISB. And while you're doing it, of course, you see at Schutte Dustin and at Alden on the Air. We're back with more Dustin, Schutte on Indiana Sports Beat right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
If you're looking for a home,
Look at that bison.
it is, man. And you know what? I'm so over people calling them buffalo. There's no such thing. I mean, I'm sure the American buffalo is a name, but that's like Indians. They weren't Indians. They were tabbed with that name.
Call them a bison.
You know what?
This show will call them bison.
I punch in American buffalo name. What comes up? Bison.
Yep.
American bison.
I learned so much from this show.
I know. It's like taking a college course.
Is there any such thing as an American buffalo?
There's no such thing as blind people. Do you know that? It's all a conspiracy.
Oh, jeez. We're getting into that, really?
No. I was at a comedy show a few weeks ago, and of course, somebody ran with that as a part of their
like the birds. Birds are fake.
And then what was kind of funny, they transitioned into saying, evidently deaf people are real, because they were talking about the interpreters.
Oh.
Is that really a discussion? Blind people not being real?
I have no idea. I figured that there was a latest conspiracy theory like the birds aren't real thing.
What do they think? Birds are government spies or something?
Yeah,
Not real
basically.
animals?
Yeah, it was something. It's something along those lines where birds are, they're government drones or something. I don't remember what it was. I think somebody started it off as a joke, and then I think some people actually ran with it as real life because people are idiots.
People can legitimately I don't know what the word is, but you can turn anything into a conspiracy theory if they want to.
Yep.
As gullible as people in this country are.
Conspire.
There you go.
There's no such thing as an American buffalo. It is people. It's just wrongly named. It was wrongly named by Lewis and Clark.
You heard it here first, folks.
Buffalo.
What a bunch of idiots, Lewis
water.
and Clark.
They look kind of like the water buffalo in Asia.
All right, here we go.
Passion for beer, food, and custom metal art. Check out their custom growlers. Metalworks Brewing Company has an updated menu, new brews, and will be offered in all Endeavor Hospitality restaurants. Come taste what Dr. Hops is brewing. Metalworks Brewing Company. Bring your passion and your thirst.
This segment is brought to you by Feast Market and Cellar. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Look at old Hoosier Hank there. Start seeing him.
Love Hoosier Hank.
He was out last night at Southern Stone. He's got pictures with Woody and Don Fisher, Terry Morin, J.D. Campbell, the SID for men's basketball. He was a popular figure last night. And you'll see him out and about. Someone asked earlier, what would it take for Indiana to get a 3 seed? Well, first of all, you need to understand seeding. You have to look at it in a linear fashion, not in a region fashion. Don't look at the 4 regions. You have to look at it linear. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1's the overall number 1 seed. 2's the number 2 1 seed. 3 is the number 3 1 seed. 4 is the number 4 1 seed. And that's how it goes. And 5 is the number 1 2 seed. And such on down the way. Currently, right now, Indiana's about 14th, I think. That makes them a 4 seed, right in the middle. What's it take for them to move up? 2 things. They have to do things to move up, and people in front of them need to do things to move down. Now, they will have that opportunity because there are 5 Big 12 teams in front of Indiana. That means 4 Big 12 teams are going to lose at least one time in the Big 12 tournament. And if any of those teams don't lose in the interim this week. So you've got opportunities there. But for Indiana to move up past a 4 seed, they're going to have to win the Big Ten tournament, I think, or at the very least play a really good championship game in it. Because they can't get higher than that, Dustin, because of there's just too much in front of them. Purdue's not falling past a 2 seed.
Right.
I mean, they're number 4 right now, so they're the last of the 1 seeds. They would have to fall 5 places. Well, you've seen Indiana beat them twice. They didn't fall out of number 1 the first time. They did not drop this time. I meant to ask Mike about that, the second one, because losing at home, the way they did, and I'm like, come on, man.
This is probably one of the reasons why Mike doesn't care much for the AP poll. But I would agree with you. I think if Indiana wins out and then they win 2 games in the Big Ten tournament, if they get to the championship, I think that you could potentially see a number 3 seed. Now, this is, like you said, you can't really project what other teams are going to do. They dug themselves a hole with the poor play in December, and it's not completely their fault, right? Like, they had to deal with injuries. They still don't have Xavier Johnson. I think it's possible, but I think that they're going to have to win their last 4 what would be 4 of their last 5. I think they could afford to lose the championship game and still potentially get a 3 seed if they beat Iowa, if they beat Michigan, and then if they win the 2 games in the Big Ten tournament to get in. Otherwise, I think it's probably set that they're probably going to be slotted in that number 4 area just because they have the 9 losses. Now, this has been a crazy college basketball season and anything can happen, as we've seen. So you never know. Maybe there's some chaotic things that happen in front of them. I just wouldn't bank on that. I think if you win 4 of the next 5, though, I think they're in a really good shape. I mean, I guess if you win 4 out of 5 and win the Big Ten tournament, you're still in pretty good shape. So you could afford to lose one of these 2 games. But we'll see. Sometimes the committee does not put all that much stock into winning the Big Ten tournament in terms of seeding.
Right now, on ESPN's bracket, we're waiting for Mike's to come out later. Where are the Indiana Hoosiers? Man, they don't use any logos on this, so that's not helping me out any. It's all words.
We need graphics.
I'm telling you, that sure makes. I don't know that I've ever seen a bracket that does not have the logos, because that's just makes it instantaneous for you.
Right.
And my eyes they've got, here we go. This would be, please stop today and make this be the bracket. ESPN's current bracket has Indiana as a 4 seed playing in Orlando.
There you go.
Then heading to Louisville.
Ooh, there you go.
You don't know how beautifully sweet that would be. Especially with Indiana's women's team playing. That would be awesome to be able to because we're trying to cover everything. They deserve that coverage as well. It's unfortunate that they're having the stinking tournament in Minnesota, where the complete lack of coverage and fan attendance will be apparent. I'm pretty certain. But anyway, but for Indiana to move up, they're going to need help from Big 12 teams. Basically, there's just too many Big 12 teams in front of them. So I think Indiana would have to win the Big Ten tournament, or, they only have to move up 2 spots or 3 spots. So I think playing in the Big Ten championship game, playing well in the Big Ten championship game, and a little bit of help in front of them will get them there. But they've got to have the help. You've got to have other teams drop.
Here's why I don't think the Big Ten championship game matters. I think they could be by 30, because the committee doesn't have enough. If they just get there, the committee's going to have them slotted where they have them slotted. I don't think it matters.
Well, look at last year. I was convinced that after they had beaten Michigan and Illinois, they were, without question, they're in the tournament, man.
But they were.
They slid into the last. I did not think that they were in a last game in situation. I thought that they were, and most people thought that they were solidly in the tournament. They weren't. They were one of the very last selections to get in, and they played Iowa really well in the game that they lost. So now this is a better team than last year, and they've had a better season, so they're not dealing with that.
I think in 2016, it was 2016, Michigan State was on the cusp of getting a number 1 seed. They went out and won the Big Ten tournament, and I can't remember who all they beat that season. I know they played Purdue in the championship game. I don't know who they played else in the Big Ten tournament. Maybe Maryland. I think maybe they beat a ranked Maryland team, and they still ended up with a 2 seed. So that's why I don't. If you're maybe it makes a difference, but I think if Indiana just gets there, and like I said, if they've won the previous 4 games, as we talked about with Iowa, Michigan, and then the 2 Big Ten tournament games, then I think that they have a great. I'm not saying that they'll get it, but they have a great chance to get the number 3 seed, seed.
And if you think that you had an issue with teams with losing records, wait till I give you this little tidbit of information.
Oh boy.
Currently in the net rankings, Indiana is 18th, 20-9 record. Right behind them, our friend Dusty May's FAU squad, at 24-3, the number 19 slot. Behind them, Kentucky.
Okay.
At 20-9, same record as Indiana, Maryland. Then TCU, West Virginia, both from the Big 12. West Virginia at 17-13. But
I need to know how
Indiana,
the net works because I have no idea.
Yeah, it's just I don't know how it works. There's a bunch of crap that goes into it.
It's
kind of a bunch of analytics.
It's
I don't know how it works. It's a bunch of analytics, and it's not the only thing that's used. It's a major tool. But as you can see, most people have Indiana slotted as a 4 right now. Well, if you just went by the net, well, they would not be a 4; they'd be a 5.
I think the net is kind of like cell phones. Everybody uses them, but nobody can explain to you how it actually works.
Well, some people can, but they're just way smarter than either you or me.
Well, right. I'm just saying the average person uses net rankings, uses a cell phone. We have no clue how they actually function or work. You can pretend that you know, but you really don't.
Well, they go, it's like strength of schedule, non-conference strength of schedule, non-conference opponents strength of schedule, things like that. Your quad 1 wins, quad 1, all that is.
But why does strength of schedule matter if you're not winning games? This is what I don't understand. Like if you're
not winning games, nothing's going to matter because nobody's going to care.
But West
Virginia,
who cares
about somebody?
What's West Virginia?
They are winning games.
They're 6-11
in conference, in the toughest conference in the history of
college
basketball.
So they're still not winning games in the toughest conference. It doesn't. That's what I'm saying. Who cares if they play the best schedule if you're winning 6 games? Big whoop.
They're set. They have a winning record overall, and they would beat probably
by
half
4
the teams.
Games. 17.
They would beat half the teams that'll be in the tournament field probably.
I hope that they lose in game 1. I hope they lose in game
4
1
now, and I have no interest in West Virginia. Now I hope they go to the freaking Final 4.
Nope. I hope they get beat in the first round so I can gloat about it. What are you dancing?
Oh my God, I can't wait till boy.
They're not.
Come on, Huggy Bear. You gotta hit the road, brother.
I do.
We got to take a break. Dustin's got to head out. And he'll be back Thursday.
Tomorrow. I'll be back.
You're back tomorrow. Perfect. I can't keep up with you, man. Like a child running all over the place.
I do whatever I want.
We got to take a quick one. Appreciate you, brother. Dustin's back with us again tomorrow. We've got more coming up, though, here on Indiana Sports Beat, brought to you by Metalworks Brewing Company. Served in all of the restaurants in and around town like BB's, Southern Stone, The Allery, Cabello, Feast, Market and Cellar, all of the great places. Don't forget, please give me a follow on Twitter. Yes, I want to get that over 4,000. At Jim Coyle, ISB. I don't ask that very often. And hit the like button and the toggle so you can keep up with all the content that we put out here because we have post-game interviews, interviews off the side. Then during the summer, there'll be all kinds of content in addition to the shows. So we've got lots more coming up here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Back with it right after this.
We'll be right back to the golf club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Mike, Delphi is a high school run program, I think, which no offense to them, but that shows you IU is not a 3 seed right now. So anyone that has them as a 3 seed is wrong because that means, let's see, so they would be in the top 12. That would put them ahead of either Baylor, who is 11-6 in that vaunted Big 12, or Arizona, who we're very familiar with, at 13-5 in the Pac-12 and who kicked Indiana's ass, or Texas, who is 11-5 in the Big 12 at number 10, or Gonzaga, who is 14-2, which Gonzaga, yeah, they're always overrated, but But yeah, you'd have to kick one of those teams out, and Indiana would have to get past Kansas State, Creighton, San Diego State, Arkansas, Marquette. So they'd have to crawl over 1, 2, 3, 4 teams and then kick another, basically 5 teams, and kick another team out, all of which have, except for Arkansas, they're what the flip are they doing up there? That's ridiculous. Yeah, that's horse crap. What the hell is Arkansas's strength of schedule? Damn, 30? How the hell is that possible? They play in the SEC. Non-conference 11-2, home 14-2, road 2-7, neutral 3-1, quad 1, 3-7, quad 3, 10-0, 10-1, 4-2, quad 2s. Yeah, they've had way too many. They're 3-7 in quad 1 games, and you got them 14th. What the frick? That's crap. See, I don't understand that. There is no effing way that Arkansas should be in front of any of the teams that they are.
All right, here we go.
Made fair, tying their roots in Limestone with their love of Southern eateries. With quality, local, and organic food as their main focus, Southern Stone strives to always provide their guests with an exceptional dining experience. With weekly specials, quick, attentive service, Southern Stone Restaurant provides delicious 5-star comfort food with a Southern charm at 2-star prices. Southern Stone Restaurant is part of Endeavor Hospitality's Wow Club.
This segment is brought to you by K-Bello. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Hey, welcome back. It is Tuesday, the last day of February, babe. That means March is here tomorrow. It was pretty windy yesterday, but it's over, baby. March is here. Springtime, March basketball, tournament play. Big Ten women's action starts this week. The Indiana women, by the way, will not play until Friday. Their game is at 12:30, and they will play the winner of the Nebraska-Michigan State game the day before, meaning they can exact revenge for what was their only loss of the season until yesterday, against when they were shorthanded against Michigan State. They didn't play well in that game anyway, but they will have the opportunity to exact revenge in their very first game. Saturday, they should be playing Ohio State if chalk plays out, which, while Ohio State is ranked, Indiana just destroyed them at Ohio State just a week or so ago. And that would put Indiana into the championship game on Sunday at 5 p.m. on ESPN against, I'm thinking it's either going to be Maryland or Iowa. I'm picking Maryland because I don't think Iowa on a neutral court. I think Maryland's a better team. Maryland did beat them by 28 the last time they played. Of course, that was at Maryland. So we'll see. That'll be interesting. But that's all coming up this weekend. Indiana, of course, plays on Sunday. Their game is at the same time as the women's championship game. So that's going to be that's going to be tough to I'll be watching one. I'll be at the game watching the other one on my laptop. I guess. So we'll be reporting on both of those, covering those, but looking forward to Indiana winning. Hopefully they'll bring back a Big Ten title. That would be great for them to match their regular season championship. Hang that up there with a banner. That will be great for them. So looking forward to that. Also, the golf club at Eagle Point opens up tomorrow. I saw that today in an email. The pro Jeff sent out. See if I can find that thing again. Where was that? Oh, yeah. Jeff Schroeder sent this out, man. Club opening Wednesday, March 1st. Opens for the season. Just give them a call for a tee time or book online. The golf course will be open based on weather and course conditions, of course. Please call ahead for availability. 812-824-4040. 812-824-4040. Book yourself a tee time. It's going to be like 71 degrees, I think. I am going to try to play because my life is about to change for the next 4 weeks. Again, it's like it's going to be football, the end of football, the start of men's and women's basketball, and soccer season coming to a head. Those are the busiest times of the year. Although it's fun. Lots of traveling coming up, man. We don't know where we're going yet. But boy, I sure did love that bracket I saw on ESPN, and I would love to see that play out. And I hope the NCAA sees that and knows that Indiana has a gigantic following in Florida. They would have a great following in Orlando. And if they then get to go play in the Yum Center in Louisville, well, forget about that. But that would also allow for easier coverage of the Indiana women's program, who, while their first weekend, they will be playing at home here in Bloomington. Second weekend, most likely they're going to be in South Carolina if they serve at this number 2 seed spot, which I expect them to do. But we'll find out. What are you expecting on tonight's game? Let's see. Everyone talking about the seeds and where Indiana is right now. It doesn't. No, I'm not buying the popcorn tonight, man. I'm gonna be working, unfortunately, Doug. I wouldn't be I don't think that Indiana shouldn't be in front of Gonzaga. I've never, ever, ever bought into the Gonzaga deal. I'm like, what have they ever done? I mean, I think they made one Final Four. Is it one? Stop with this crap. I'm tired of it. Just because they go 25-2 because they play nobody. St. Mary's College. They're the same. What? Those are two of the same. They play nobody. They run up these gigantic records, 24-6, by playing a schedule. They're 24-6. You know how many total quad 1 games St. Mary's has played? Total 4. They're 2-2. They're 11-2 in quad 3s, but they're 2-2 in quad 1 game. That's, if you don't play anybody, you get relegated. I just don't buy that. I'm sorry. You're playing Oral Roberts in Vermont and North Texas and Southern and Hofstra, Vanderbilt, the bottom of the SEC. They did play Houston, but they lost. Missouri State, San Diego State, and Mexico. That's just not. Portland, Loyola Marymount, Pepperdine, it's just not the same quality. It's a disagreement that me and Dustin have. Quality matters. Quality of opponent matters. There's a reason why Gonzaga doesn't do anything nationally. There's a reason why this team's not going to do anything nationally. And sometimes when you play good opponents, it doesn't matter. Purdue's a good example. As a program, they play in the Big Ten, so they're playing quality opponents. But yeah, they have not been to a Final Four since 1980, 43 years it'll be this year. And that was only their second ever in 123 years of basketball. So it's when you don't do things nationally, it just, that plays to Purdue's recruiting. They recruit, they have their style, and it works for them, but it only works within the Big Ten Conference, I guess. they won't ever seem prepared to be able to. And I'm not trying to pick on Purdue. They've got a great team. Well, they've got a good team. They don't have a great team. They might be great next year because Zach Edey's coming back, and those guards will be grown up a little bit more. They'll have more experience, but they're not going to, Bob Kravitz mentioned it already, why he thought that they won't go far, and I've said it multiple times as well. Young guards, baby. But Indiana on a roll tonight. What will Jalen Hood-Schifino do to follow up his performance? Trace Jackson-Davis, expect a big performance out of him because he is going to want to redeem his 10-point performance against Purdue. Plus, Iowa just does not have the wherewithal to take care of both Jalen Hood-Schifino and Trace Jackson-Davis, as they'll try to get up and down the court. So it should be a high-scoring game. Big thanks to Dustin Schutte, as always. Mike DeCourcy, our good friend, and Chronic Hoosier, as always, for appearing on. John, the producer, big thanks as well. Most importantly, thanks to you guys. Without you, we have no reason to be here. Give us a like, hit the notifications button, hit me up on Twitter at Jim Coyle ISB with a follow, please. And we're back tomorrow to do it all again, and I can't wait. Indiana takes on Iowa tonight. Until then, I'm Jim Coyle. I will see you on the radio.
Thanks for listening to Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube page for more clips and team coverage of Indiana basketball, football, and more. You can also find full episodes and tons of other content on thehoosier.com. We'll see you next time for another edition of Indiana Sports Beat Radio.